Millions of Americans are getting the opportunity to hit pause on their student loan payments. What does that mean for you, and how should you respond to it? Stick around. Hi there, I'm Ben with You Need a Budget, and I'm here to tell you everything you need to know about the student loan freeze. If you already know all about it, then you can go ahead and skip to the next section of this video where I'll talk through some tips on what to do with all this money you're suddenly not required to throw at student loans. For those who are a bit confused, and let's face it, there's a lot to be confused about in 2021, in response to COVID-19, the federal government suspended all student loan payments in March of 2020. Not only were borrowers not required to make monthly payments, but all interest rates were temporarily lowered to 0%. This was true even if you'd gone into default on your student loans. In other words, the federal government put student loans on pause. Now, it's important to clarify that this only applies to student loans issued by the Department of Education. Private student loan providers are not required to suspend payments, although some private providers have followed suit, so check in with yours to see if they have any new options for you. Also, if you have any FFEL or Perkins loans, it's worth noting that some of those aren't technically financed by the federal government, and therefore aren't necessarily suspended. If you're unsure, contact your loan provider to check. Now, this freeze was set to expire January 31st of this year, but President Biden has extended that expiration date to September 30th, 2021, which just so happens to be my birthday. So when your student loans come due again, just remember that I'm older. You don't need to do anything to make it happen. It's all automatic. So if anyone contacts you saying you need to pay a fee, that's a scam, and you can ignore it. It's also worth noting that any payments you've made on federal loans since March 13th, 2020 are eligible for a refund. So if you've continued to pay and find yourself in a situation where you really need that money, that option is available to you. Just remember that any money you're refunded is money you'll have to pay back later because, it's a loan. So that is the student loan debt freeze. It's a weird thing, so what do we do about it? Well, let's step back and get a little perspective. Not having to pay that monthly payment means you now have a say in what happens with those dollars. Right now, the average student loan payment is right around $400. So for the average person from January to September, that's an extra $3,200 they get to hang on to. Now, yours may be bigger or smaller, but money's money. If you're also getting a stimulus payment, that's an extra $600, putting our average American up to $3,800. And not to mention there's tax season where the average refund is about $2,500. So the average American with student loans is looking at anything from an extra $3,800 to $6,300 in their bank account this year. That means that a lot of people are likely looking at the biggest windfall of their life so far. I mean, if someone dropped $3,800 in your lap, you'd want to think about it, right? So what should you do with that money? Well, it's time to ask yourself some questions. Let's start with a big one. Should you keep paying down your student loans? Obviously, if your student loans aren't accruing interest right now, then you'll get out of debt a lot faster and save yourself some money on interest if you keep paying them down during this freeze. Here at YNAB, we love paying down debt. We even made a whole video course just to help people come up with a step-by-step debt paydown plan, which I would highly recommend if you're currently trying to get out of debt. It's totally free, you don't have to sign up for any email lists or trials or any of that, and you can knock the whole thing out in a little over an hour. If that sounds like your jam, you'll find a link in the description. So yeah, I love the idea of you getting out of debt faster, but here's a little food for thought. There's been a lot of buzz about whether the federal government will full-on cancel some amount of student loan debt, with some people saying $10,000 and others saying as much as $50,000. Now, there's a very good chance that won't happen because it would be virtually unprecedented. But last year was kind of the year of the virtually unprecedented. So it would be a serious bummer to be paying off those debts all through the freeze only to find out that you didn't actually need to. I mean, even if the federal government offers refunds to people who do that, it's likely to be a slow, annoying process to get all your money back. Obviously, you don't want to bank on student loan cancellation because that's not a financial strategy. That's just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. But there is a way you can still be responsible and aggressive about debt paydown without potentially getting undercut in the off chance a federal loan cancellation does go through. Each month, act like you're still paying your student loans. Keep budgeting for your loan payment, But instead of sending it to your loan provider, hang on to it. Don't spend it, just let it build up. Now, let's say the pipe dream becomes a reality and your loans do get canceled. Hooray! Not only are you out of student loan debt, but you just got a big old cash prize that you can use to pad your emergency fund or invest into your future, whatever. And if nothing happens and loans start up again on September 30th, then you can drop that big old wad of cash all at once, like a financial sledgehammer of responsibility. Functionally, your money is doing the exact same thing as if you had paid month to month, but you're not going to have to go through the hassle of government bureaucracy if the landscape totally changes. Not to mention, you might get to see one of your loans disappear instantaneously. So there's a possible plan. If you want to start kicking butt and taking names now, then I'm not here to stop you. But before we decide to funnel all that money toward our loans, let's ask ourselves a few more questions. Are you struggling right now? If you, like so many other people affected by the pandemic, are having trouble just getting food on the table, then use this money to pay for your needs. Keep those lights on, feed your family, stay healthy, and use this little reprieve to see if you can make any changes to your financial situation, like moving to a place with lower rent, picking up another job or side hustle, eliminating some unnecessary expenses, whatever that looks like for you. If you're not financially struggling, then ask yourself, how secure do you feel? Let's say you make $3,000 a month and your expenses come out to about $3,000 a month. Great, you've got food on the table, your rent's on time, and you'll be totally secure as long as nothing unexpected ever happens, ever. But we know that things break. Annual fees sneak up on us, the holidays come every year, and if you don't have any financial buffer, then each of those things has the potential to become a financial crisis, one that's likely to seriously disrupt your life or plunge you into even more debt. Most of those gotcha expenses aren't really surprises. They're just easy to forget about or put off because they don't happen every month. Now, imagine you could see into the future and you knew your car was going to need a $400 repair in August. What would you do? My guess is that you'd start setting some money aside each month so that you'd be ready to pay that bill when it gets here. Because you're smart. You went to college after all. Well, why not do that with all of those unexpected scenarios? Take that student loan money and set some aside for car repairs, for your Amazon Prime subscription, for Christmas and birthday gifts. All those things you're going to need to pay eventually. Track how much money you're setting aside for each expense. Think of it as a scoreboard for your financial security. By being proactive about these non-monthly expenses rather than reactive, you're going to give yourself way more flexibility and peace of mind. If our $3,000 a month friend gets that conservative $3,800 estimate we talked about, that's with no tax refund, then he could get a whole month ahead by doing this. If you're not struggling with money right now, this is definitely the strategy I would look at first. But let's ask another important question. Do you have other debt you could tackle? If you've got another form of debt like a credit card balance or a car loan, now might be the perfect time to kick that loan right in its keister. Your federal student loans are most likely your lowest interest rates, probably somewhere between 2.75 and 6%. A car loan can be anywhere from 4 to 12%, and a credit card can go from 12 to 25%. So let's put that into perspective. Say our average American has a credit card balance of $3,000 with a low interest rate of 12%, and they're making a minimum payment of $60 a month. In the next 8 months, they'll pay more than $230 in interest. But how close are they to actually paying off that debt? If they keep going at that rate, and we assume they never use that credit card again, and they never miss a payment, it'll take them a little less than 17 years to pay off that debt. And they'll have paid over $2,500 in interest? Think about what you could do with $2,500 if you weren't throwing it at a bank. So wait, what would 25% be then? Oh no. No, what? Okay, so it would take more than 30 years to pay off that balance. So there's that. And you would pay $26,000 in interest on a $3,000 balance. $26,000. You're paying $26,000, but you're not putting a down payment on a house. You're just paying off your credit card. But If our average American throws their freed up $400 on top of that $60 minimum payment, they'll pay off that 12% credit card completely by August, having only paid $118 in interest. And in that 25% scenario, it would take them just one additional month to knock it out, having only paid $258 in interest instead of, $26,000. That sounds like a good return on investment. I don't know. And that $60 minimum payment will be freed up to do other things, like afford a nice date night once a month, or help pay off the rest of their student loans, or build up a strong emergency fund. Okay, I know I'm getting pretty amped here, but before you go hog wild on your other debts, pause and go back to that question we asked earlier. How secure do you feel? If you aggressively pay down your credit card but have no buffer to deal with unexpected expenses, then guess what happens when your alternator breaks? You go right back into debt. 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. Building up the buffer you need to deal with those non-monthly expenses will help you to stay out of debt in the future. Before you start your debt paydown plan, you need a debt prevention plan to help you roll with those non-monthly expenses and surprises when they pop up. But let's say you're not struggling, you've got a good buffer, and you're not plagued by other debts. Well, here comes the fun question. What do you want to do? There's no wrong answer here. If you want to get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months of expenses in the bank, great. Invest into retirement, save up for a down payment, adopt a dog, buy a keytar. It's up to you. But remember, this isn't forever. Maybe student loans will get canceled, but there's a real good chance they won't. If your regular spending inflates during this time period, then it's going to be tough to adjust once that student loan bill starts hitting your account again. Think of this as halftime. You've been wrestling with these student loans, and now you get a chance to take a break. But that doesn't mean you start gorging yourself on pizza or settling down for a nap. You catch your breath, you swig some Gatorade, and you figure out your game plan going into the second half. This student loan freeze could just be a chance to loosen your belt. Or it could be the reset that finally helps you get real control over your money and your goals. We've laid out a few game plans, so you figure out which one works best for you. And we'll see you in the second half.